This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. Sound the brackets mini, close brackets crisis at Liverpool klaxon. 3 defeats in a row for Arne Slot, and after weeks of not being great but winning late on, they're now not being great and losing late on. Chelsea missing so many, especially in defence, are an odd team but sometimes a good team. Caicedo with the perfect long-range whack and Estevao late on. Maresca sent off for being happy. We can't have that. It means Arsenal go top, a tediously easy 2-0 win over West Ham, but they lost that one last year. This could be the year for Mikel. Spurs are third after a gritty, wet, windy, resolute win at Elland Road. Pascal does strike twice, the kind of game that they probably would have lost last year, given they lost almost all their games last year. Ange is now losing games at Forest, 2-0 at Newcastle. Voltemada was very good. Manchester United are back, well, who knows, but a win is a win. Everton somehow end Crystal Palace's unbeaten run. Another chance to say we're all happy to see Jack Grealish being happy. Bournemouth are fourth, Antoine Semenyo leading a comeback against Fulham. Donyell Marlon scores a couple of decent ones for Villa. Man City win at Brentford, and more late agony for Wolves, still without a win for the irresponsible Vitor Pereira. Elsewhere, Russell Martin is sacked as Rangers manager after a complete disaster, and Barry's header's been turned into a holiday game for all the family. We'll answer your questions as always, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, John Brewin, hello.
Hello, Max.
Welcome, Lucy Ward.
Hey, Max.
And hello, Barry Glendenning.
It's not for the first time, Max. I want to skip straight to the end to find out about this game.
Again, it'll be an anticlimax, but it'll be a nice thing for people to hear at the end of the podcast. Shamik says, what happened this week on the football? Great question. Let's go through it all. We'll begin at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1. Maresca running down the line for that winner. I mean, a brilliant moment for Estevao. A great moment for Maresca, even though he was sent off. Producer Joel saying, does that make it 4 red cards in 5? Not sure. But anyway, Barry, a huge win for him. And a huge win for Chelsea.
Yeah, and a worrying defeat for Liverpool. I think they don't lose 3 in a row too often, and they're not playing well. But from a Chelsea perspective, I find it kind of difficult to get invested in Chelsea this season. I'm not sure why. I think there's so many. They seem to have about 100 players in their squad, and I can't keep track of them, and they play guys I don't know, which, I have no idea who they are, which is rare for a Big Six team. I could be forgiven, I suppose, for not recognising a few Burnley players or Leeds players because they've just come up. Moise Caicedo is turning out to be just a fantastic signing for Chelsea. Liverpool fans will be aware, obviously. They were looking on going, he was about to sign for us and then didn't. In terms of Liverpool's performance, there's just so many things wrong. And I presumed they'll just click into gear at some point and start winning while playing well instead of winning while playing well within themselves. And that's not happened. They're still not playing well, and now they've started to lose, and it's worrying. What do you do with Mo Salah, who I think he has 3 goals and a few assists, but he's clearly not the player he was in recent seasons? Do you do the unthinkable and drop him? Or, because I think you could see there were a few occasions in that game where he did his Mo Salah thing, cutting in from the right and trying to curl one inside the far post, and he was ballooning the ball over the bar, and you could see his teammates starting to get frustrated with him, and that is something I don't recall seeing before. So plenty for Arne Slot to think about over the next 2 weeks of international break.
Yeah, I did try and lead with Chelsea, Lucy, but Liverpool losing 3 in a row is the story, I guess.
And do you know what, Max? That they're struggling to get the rhythm going. Liverpool, integrating new signings who have not hit the ground running, but that will happen. But I think from experience, from a human side, the grief of losing Jota is just doesn't stop when all when all the tributes and the laying of flowers ends. This is and I look at Salah and he just doesn't look happy at all. If you think about it as an adult, you sort of go into a place of work which is always full of fun every single day, and one person now is not there, and you still got to go and perform physically and mentally. I honestly think that that's got a lot to do with and people, other fans will say, that's just excuses. But I just think the combination of new players in and that affecting a key part of the group is massive, because it just doesn't go away. Everybody who knows who's lost someone close to them, it's particularly unexpectedly, particularly when they're young, it's a very, very difficult to get your head round. And it's already quite pressurised being a Premier League footballer. And I honestly think that just sort of tips the balance of performance. And it was never sustainable that they were going to keep scoring late winners. That always was going to tip the balance at some point. But I do think the grief will play a massive part of it.
No, I completely agree. And actually, it's difficult in a way, because you don't. Well, you can probably analyse every Liverpool game and at the end of it say, look, they are going through something. And I think we've talked about it before. We have talked about it before, John. But it's a really stark example of the fact that sort of all analysis of football is at some level quite superficial, because we just don't know how any of these guys are feeling. And I was listening to another podcast talking about Salah's form and saying how bad it was, and I was thinking exactly what you said, Lucy, which is, look, we might be projecting. We don't know. Clearly, he was incredibly moved, and like all the, he had someone. And football dressing rooms are quite sort of odd places anywhere in terms of how intense it is day to day, and sort of how close you are to these people, whether they're your friends or they're not. So we might be projecting. I don't know, but I really get that sense, John, that this is something that we should never ever ignore for, not just this season, but for these young men. Basically.
It can't be dismissed, because all of us will have or will experience this type of thing. And footballers are human beings. I do wonder that loss has, in a strange way, affected the integration of those other new players, because they're arriving at a club where there's this thing hanging over the other players, that they've lost their friend, and trying to be part of a group that actually shares something which is deeply sad. It might be very difficult for those new chaps coming in. And we have to, it seems a bit trite to put an asterisk, but you have to put that against Liverpool at the moment. Arne Slot's spoken very well about this. But Arne Slot, of course, will also talk about the football matters, which are that a team is failing to integrate for whatever reason. And the changes he's making aren't coming off in a way that they did last season. So, whereas last season, it was a genius move to put Ryan Gravenberch as a central midfielder, that's maybe not coming off in the same way this season. Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz was a pressing machine, I was told, in the Bundesliga. Maybe pressing in the Premier League isn't the same as in the Bundesliga, because, I laugh at a joke, you might have to put in a tackle in the Premier League. You might have to throw in one. And he does a lot of running around, chasing after the ball, but I'm not sure he's quite up to the physical bit yet. And that will take time. Listen, when you paid that much money for a player, you've got to give them time, even if people like us are already beginning to ask questions. But you've got this issue of Salah, where the more cynical people are saying, well, he's got his new contract, and, does he... No, I don't think that really works. I think Salah is off for whatever reason. And this is it. There's a great big intangible over Liverpool in that they've signed all these players. They signed, Isak, it's funny, isn't it? The best two touches in this game came from Isak and, although did he mean it?
Wirtz.
Wirtz, yes. Well, the Isak one...
yeah. He meant that. There are the glimpses of what a player he is.
Yeah, when he set up for Gakpo, who, unfortunately, Gakpo did not have a good game apart from that.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant the Wirtz one where he...
Yeah, but the Wirtz one, he did mean that one. The Wirtz one, that was unbelievable, yeah.
If Isak meant that, it's extraordinary.
Yes, yeah. That is, that's what you pay 100 and whatever million for. But those... Okay, the most effective touches, obviously Salah misses the chance created by Wirtz. So there probably are signs that it can work, but it's again, I made this example at the start of the season, and I will celebrate myself. Why not? The Juan Sebastian Veron comparison just rings out, doesn't it? Where the football at times can be beautiful, twinkle-toed stuff, but it's not very effective. And you've got other players like the right back spot. What about Trent Alexander? Remember Alexander-Arnold? What a good player he was, it turns out. You've got Conor Bradley having a problem, isn't he? He gets booked. He gets booked too easily, doesn't he? That's probably he's not that disciplined. And Frimpong, I think among Liverpool fans, they're already saying, why did we buy this guy? And yeah, but do you know what? Let's talk about Chelsea a little bit. I was talking to the detective chief superintendent of the Celebration Police. His name is Jonathan Wilson. And he was saying about Maresca's celebration. He said, why is it after winning the 7th game of the season, is he celebrating like he's Bob Stokoe or David Pleat back in 1983? You know, it would be great actually to see Enzo Maresca in a pair of moccasins, you know, and white suit. Maresca, is he a big game manager? He's beaten PSG. He's beaten Liverpool. And yet in other games, Chelsea played like a drain. And when Barry says they're mysterious, that's another edge to it, isn't it?
Well, I suppose that's the point. If you're an odd team, like I said in the intro, sometimes you can be bad and sometimes you can be good. And it's some feat, Barry, to beat Liverpool, even if it's an out-of-form Liverpool, when you are missing so many defenders, and then another 2 get injured, and then you bring on players, and you do have to have like Wikipedia open at the moment if you're not a Chelsea fan to be like, that guy is that guy. And I don't think that's like professional irresponsibility of us. I think a lot of neutrals are like, oh, okay, he was 35 million from them, and he was an academy player, and and there must be part of Maresca just looking at the, who he's putting on his bench and like thinking, where do they fit in a kind of whiteboard?
Well, I knew they had Gittins. I knew they had Estevao, and what a performance he had in his 20 minutes. It was pretty much a man of the match performance. Set up a goal, had a couple of shots himself, created a brilliant chance for Enzo Fernandez, which he didn't convert. But I knew about him from the Club World Cup. I knew about Mark Yu because he went on loan to Sunderland and then they took him back when the Lap got injured. I think he might have played 1 or maybe 2 games for Sunderland. Hato, who's this guy? Not a clue. I think he replaced Achimpong, who I also wasn't particularly familiar with. Maybe it is professional responsibility.
Yes, it is.
I do find it.
Do you not watch the UEFA Conference League last season?
No, I don't.
You told me you watched everyone that I commentated on, so obviously not.
No, so Lucy, fill us in, Lucy, because you're the most professional of us.
Well, Achimpong is an extremely. He should have had a lot more minutes than he's had. He's very comfortable on the ball, and he's played a lot and this is the thing about Chelsea now, is that they can bring some of these players in when they're having problems injury wise and know that they can perform. Some of the places that they went to were wild, like the fans, the opposition fans, where it was Warsaw or Copenhagen. These players played in that sort of environment and shone. So the Champong, Tyreek George, there's all these academy players. So if he needs them, he'll play them, although he's loath to play them. That's the thing, Maresca, at times. He'll play them in the Conference League and he sort of had separate squads. But I've noticed that even though Champong is probably one of the better, even if you don't even consider him a young player, he's one of these better defenders, he doesn't really get a chance. And I noticed as well, who did I notice?
I was going to say Malo Gusto playing in midfield actually was really impressive, I thought.
Yeah, he's just, technically, right back is arguably the most, if you're right-footed, is the most simple position to play because everything's in front of you to the side. It's not sort of 360. So if you've got that sort of technical ability, as Reece James has as well, you can sort of integrate. But I just think that Chelsea were the only team who were, at the end of it, were trying to win it and prepared to take risks. And I think that was the bit that just got them over the line at the end. And Estevao is going to be an unbelievable player.
Yeah. That Liverpool defeat meant they were replaced at the top of the league by Arsenal. They beat West Ham 2-0. Mikel Arteta's 300th game in charge. The game itself, completely unmemorable, I would say, John. But it has been a really, really good week for Arsenal. This and Newcastle away were games they lost last season. They've won those both. They had a good win in the Champions League as well. And it could be a title-winning team, this.
For the 4th season in a row,
yeah,
Arsenal look like contenders. And this could be their year. If we flip through the other contenders, they have the strongest squad. That is of no doubt. Match of the Day did a comparison of their bench last season against West Ham, against this season against West Ham, and there really was no comparison. And so they suffer what last season was a mortal blow, the loss of Martin Odegaard, who had been brilliant actually against Olympiacos in midweek, him back to his best. It didn't knock them down. Eze moves into the centre and they bring on Zubimendi, who's a really high-quality player, and they get the job done. And it's about getting the job done, winning those games. It's West Ham. The other match today, Fats, I enjoyed was that West Ham's last 4 meetings against Arsenal have featured 4 different managers.
Yeah.
Which
tells you something.
Which says something about... Yes, it does. But actually, and the thing is, Arsenal have built a stability, and the fact that Arteta can... The amount of defenders they've got is incredible. I mean, even Chelsea's injury crisis, they'd still be able to field a full group of internationals if he had that. They are, just so full of options. I suppose the big question is if Gyökeres starts scoring goals on a... I was saying this yesterday, actually. I said, if he scores, say, half of Haaland total, I think Arsenal are pretty set fair, because they're getting goals from other parts of the team. City, we'll get to them, are reliant on Haaland. But Arsenal, they look well set. They really do look well set, and they are not letting setbacks get to them in the same way. It's not as frantic. I mean, I think this time last year, they were already fretting, weren't they? There's no need to worry. They've got so many good players. There shouldn't be a problem.
Watch that, the Odegaard incident, and it reminded me of injury that I learned when I was at university that was called the unhappy triad of O'Donoghue, which is basically an NFL injury. So when you hit in the knee from the outside, it damages your MCL, which is your medial collateral ligament, which I think is what Odegaard has done, your medial cartilage, and your ACL. And I remember that, and it always. And when I saw it, I thought, "Oh God, that could be." But I think it's just been reported that he's done his MCL, his medial collateral ligament, which is probably the best thing that out of that could have happened. So yeah, there you are, some knowledge, some injury knowledge there for you, Baz. Don't fall asleep.
What did you call it? Sorry,
the unhappy triad of O'Donoghue.
O'Donoghue, right? Who's O'Donoghue?
It must have happened to him first. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know that much.
He was an unhappy triad. He didn't really want to be in the triads, but
he had the tattoos,
yeah,
but
exactly.
he just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it paid the bills, didn't it? I mean, the thing is, as well, like winning the title is either being the best or the least worst.
Yeah.
And obviously, at the moment, Barry, you look at the rivals with Liverpool slipping, and it is, of course, very early. Liverpool slipping a bit. City could really still turn it on, right? There's no doubt about that. But you'd have to go, God, we've been second so many times, and now look, the door is ajar, even this early.
Yeah, well, Arsenal are now favourites to win the title, and I think they're very justified in that favouritism. The cynic in me thinks they will find a way to mess it up, but it's far too early to say it's theirs to lose. So many things could go wrong.
Of course.
They are, just on the evidence of what we've seen, or what I've seen so far, I think they are definitely in a very, very good position to win it, given their performances, their defence, their squad depth. They're totally justified in their favouritism at the moment.
Well, congratulations to Mikel Arteta for winning the title. Anyway, that'll do for part 1. Part 2 will begin at Elland Road. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Leeds 1, Spurs 2. Tottenham a third, Lucy. I'm not sure how good they are, but you were at this game. What did you make of it?
It was all set up, wasn't it? Leeds' home record, the baying crowd, and the atmosphere, the weather was absolutely horrific. I did some filming beforehand, and there was a wind tunnel in the East Stand, which nearly took my head off. The viewers of TNT Sports managed to see my goal in Lucas Radovich's testimonial, even though it looked grainy. It was only 20 years ago, but in the Kop end. So I made sure that was played out.
That made the edit. Good stuff. Good fit. Was it a good goal?
I didn't realise. It was a good goal against Bruce Gorbelaar, so it was, it's at levels.
Let's say no more about that.
Yeah. We all had a line, but none of us said it. Carry on.
Yeah.
So, Spurs, very impressed with Spurs. I'm sure we'll talk about Russell Martin later, but Thomas Frank in a example of a manager who recognises when things are. What sort of challenge he'll face him when he goes to a place like Elland Road. And the Elland Road crowd after the start were actually really quiet because Spurs did quite well. They got a goal, and then they allowed Leeds back into it, which I thought It's good play by Calvert-Lewin, who had a really difficult afternoon against Van der Ven and Romero. What a player Romero is, by the way. I mean, I've commentated him on live, but he's usually miles away. I'm usually miles, but you're out on top of it at Elland Road, so it's quite interesting to watch. But those two are very difficult to play against, two Spurs centre-back. Kudus was very good. It's quite a tight game, but I just think that when they got the second goal and Leeds changed to a back three and shoved Calvert-Lewin up with the other two centre forwards, and he went for it, did Daniel Farke, and he has actually been criticised a lot for the choice of his subs, timing of his subs. But I think Farke has shown that he's learnt a lot from his experiences with Norwich in the Premier League. He's not playing the same as he did last season with Leeds in the Championship, completely different. You know, he's going a little bit longer. He's recruited all physical players that sometimes lack a little bit of finesse, but, you know, it's what's needed. And he's got a few creative players. Okafor, if he sort of keeps coming good, then great signing. But what Thomas Frank did when they changed to a back three Leeds, I could see him for a minute or so having discussions with his centre back, with his coaching staff, and he just then shoved on Kevin Danso and went, right, all right, then you won't get past us now. We'll just match you up, and you know you don't really score from open play, which Leeds don't. That's what they're struggling from, and they saw it through. And I just thought it was a masterclass from Thomas Frank in dealing with what's in front of him, rather than this is my philosophy and I'll do it regardless of what happens in the end. And that very impressive. And Leeds were brilliant as well. You know, Leeds will cause lots of problems at Elland Road. I think they need to make sure that they improve themselves in front of goal when it's not a set piece. However, you know, set pieces might help them get wins and points this season, but a really positive start for Leeds.
Lucy, what did you make of Xavi Simons? Because I think a lot of Tottenham fans are looking at him because they are missing Maddison and Kulusevski for sort of a creative spark.
Thomas Frank allowed him to just pop up anywhere. He was very effective in terms of, so when Spurs won it back, you just looked where he was, wherever he was is where they sort of attacked down, and Leeds left it quite open, had a quite high line with no real pressure on the ball at times. That's how they got the first goal with Tell, but I quite like Simons. There was a couple of balls that he played that they don't have anybody that can play those balls because obviously Maddison's not there. And I think that might be, once he sort of finds his feet even more, I think he will be really important for Spurs.
And it is, John, a game that, you know, Tottenham don't win because it's cold and wet and hard, and Leeds were good. And so that, I mean, I don't know if those cliches do feel, that feels like it. And maybe they did have a resolve under Pochettino at times, but
I mean, actually, Pochettino departed in 2019, which is a reasonable amount of time ago. But we forget that for Spurs have actually been quite a decent team in the last 10 years. And there's just that, I suppose, the Mourinho period and then Ange, and I mean, they were a good team under Conte. So expectations are quite high, and this is a club in transition. This is a club that's just, Daniel Levy has been ushered out in succession style. You know, the family are taking over the business, and it's a club in turmoil. And I'd say every time, let's praise Thomas Frank for a guy who can instill a team to play and win at a difficult place to go and ignore all the distractions. Because at other clubs, stuff like that starts to peel into the dressing room. He's just getting on with his job. It's funny you talked about Simons. I was told when I was at a Spurs game a couple of weeks ago that over in Holland, one in particular, keen-eyed Dutch coach was saying, why are they playing him on the left? He is not a left winger. Get him in the middle. You'll get the best of him. And I think Frank is starting to realise that he can only really... he's a good enough player to give a free role. But it might take a little bit more time. He's come from a different league. He's not someone like James Maddison that's arriving from the Premier League and is up to speed. There's a very good player there. Tottenham are going in the right direction. It's felt like a while, even though they won the Europa League last season. Strange old game, isn't it?
I mean, no one on this podcast would say Xavi Simons was a winger. That I can say for certain. Any strong thoughts? I mean, Lucy mentioned Dominic Calvert-Lewin there, Barry. Another day where he had some chances. And Vicario had made a couple of good saves in this game, but Calvert-Lewin had a couple of chances, the kind of chances that he does miss.
Yeah, and he missed them. I think he had 3 presentable chances. Sean Longstaff put a good shot just narrowly wide. Joe Rodon hit the post with a header when it was still 0-0. I was very impressed with Leeds, but the last time I said they look light up front, they proceeded to score 4 goals in their next game. So, but they do look light up front. On another day, with a slightly more consistent or clinical striker than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they might have won this game. I thought they were really good in defeat.
Let's go to Old Trafford. Manchester United 2, Sunderland 0. Manchester United have won 3 home games in a row. The first time in over 2 years that's happened. Their first clean sheet of the season too. Wow. John, they're back.
Ecstatic scenes as they beat Sunderland 2-0. Yeah, better. That's all we can say, really. That's all Ruben Amorim was prepared to say. I was listening to Gary Neville kicking back at criticism of Gary Neville, as he often does.
He's going to be busy today, then.
Yes, that's a separate issue that let's probably not discuss on this podcast. But Ruben Amorim said, like, the pundits have been kicking up against us, and he said, well, we used the pundits back in 1995 when Alan Hansen said we couldn't win anything with kids, and, you know, we all want you to do well. Why would I go to Old Trafford if I wanted you to lose, and all this? And maybe things are turning, perhaps they're not, we don't know. But the thing is, he made slight tactical switches. Diallo looked very good in that game. Mason Mount is a player who is one of those players, and there aren't many of them, who's looked better under Ruben Amorim than he did under previous management. Sesko, nice goal from the, I think Route 1 we're calling it now. Route 1 is a throw-ins now. Let's discuss this because we might get to the throw-ins now that they're so prevalent in the game. I was chatting to some pals after the Brentford game yesterday. In football, and Lucy may know this because she's the best informed of us on actual football, can you actually lift up your teammate like you can in rugby for a throw-in, or is that considered some sort of infringement?
Yeah, it'll be ungentlemanly conduct or whatever they call it.
It is yeah, that is, yeah.
Is that right?
It will be, yeah. They just have that section open for anything that people might think of like that, John, I think.
But also it'd be very hard, actually, because a line-out is going in a specific place. A long throw, it'd be actually, I think what you'd have is just one of your players 12 feet in the air missing the ball. I just don't like that. I think actually because it's...
But if you've got like the biggest guy in the team, say he's just going to get in the way of the ball. I mean, because when I was watching Haaland, essentially is the leading man. He's the lock forward. I wrote this in my match report. You know, he's the lock forward that's like, he's the target for when the opposing hooker is throwing in the ball. I mean, we've got to this strange situation where it is like watching a rugby line-out when it's just...
So we'll see Haaland coming out now with those little handles strapped to his thighs so his teammates can get additional purchase.
You'll be able to lift him. It'll take about 6 to lift him up.
Yeah, but the odd thing is, isn't the odd thing that, you know, long throws have always been quite useful, perhaps not as useful as, you know, not everyone's already lap, that suddenly... just how, you know, sort of like chic football teams are, that everyone's gone, well, this seems like a really good idea. Like it just seems odd that there weren't just a few teams always doing it, or maybe they were. Like everyone's just gone, why don't I just lump it in the bot? Who thought of this?
Do you know what? Quite a lot of them probably didn't know they could do a long throw. When I was working for the Premier League in COVID, and I was going around to Sheffield United to check that they were doing all the processes right, they weren't going too close to each other, etc. They were on the training ground. I was watching training, and Chris Wilder and Alan Nill, who were sort of working out set pieces, and Jack Robinson picked the ball up and went, I'll have a go, and then absolutely arrowed this long throw, and he did it, and nobody attacked it. Everybody just went, why did you not say you could do that? And then from then on, Jack Robinson, every time I see him, he's not playing for them anymore, but it's for a few years after he played for them, and he would take these long throws, and they were like, how the hell, why did you? He said, well, I did know I could do it. Well, why didn't you say? Because that is so effective. And they used it quite a bit after that. It was quite amusing.
Barry, what did you make of Sané Lamin's debut in goal? I mean, got a clean sheet. Fans were singing, are you Schmeichel in disguise? You know, he did everything was needed to do, I guess.
I was kind of surprised he was brought in after what I would say was Beender's probably his best game for United last week. But Lamins came in. He made a couple of decent saves. I think you'd expect him to make them. Nothing out of the top drawer, particularly because Sunderland didn't really offer much in this game apart from the chance Bertrand Traore missed when it was still scoreless. But clean sheet on debut, you can't do much better than that, I suppose. But he didn't have a great deal to do, but anything he did have to do, he did quite well, apart from one little rush of blood where he charged out of his penalty area and got away with it.
I mean, actually, that Traore miss, there was some conjecture on the radio yesterday, Barry, about whether it was offside, and so not a bad miss. But I don't think Traore knew it was offside, John.
No.
And that would have changed the whole complexion of this game. Was that 3 minutes in? If Sunderland take the lead, it is very different.
Yeah, because the Manchester United's sense of self is so lacking at the moment that. And fans at Old Trafford as well, that it would have been United in crisis again, and the world turns to Old Trafford. And it's the funny thing, isn't it? As soon as they start winning 2-0, everyone's like, "Oh, that's boring, isn't it? Oh, yeah, God, no one cares about that anymore." We without Man United to punch in, be used as a punch bag, they're no use to anyone, are they? That's the thing. That's it. That's just their role in life now. It's just for everyone to laugh at them. That hurts, That hurts.
Yeah, but I suppose the next thing is to get close, is to sort of Arsenal come second and not quite do it. That's where that would be the next stage, I reckon, of this process, but it feels a reasonable way off. John, you were on the South Coast on Friday night, in your sou'wester, to see Bournemouth beat Fulham. Good comeback from Bournemouth.
Well, the first half was affected by the weather, let's put it that way. Good God. And the second half, I think the players just thought, we're going to have to run around a lot more in this because otherwise it's going to be even worse. And Semenyo, who'd not really been too involved, suddenly just took up the cudgels and was absolutely brilliant. More tributes paid to Iraola for some very nice substitutions, brings on Justin Kluivert, brings on Jimenez to push up on overlap on the right. Gambled. He took off defenders to try and get back in the game and just went for it. And it paid off because at the moment, Bournemouth have players in reserve that can come in, which they didn't have last season. Remember, they were playing with 12 fit players at one point and doing very well. The squad is stronger, despite being asset stripped over the summer. He continues to be a hugely impressive character. I felt deeply sorry for Marco Silva, who decided to style it out in just a sweater, which will have had to have been wrung out the minute he came into the dressing room. I think he just at the start was like that, and it's like, being the alpha male that he is, was like, I can't really go back on this. I can't. The club puffer will have to stay in the dugout. And I don't know if you remember this time when they played at Bournemouth last season, they subbed off the wrong player. Do you remember this? It was Sasa Lukic and Sessegnon. One of his assistants got mixed up.
Yes.
Then Lukic got injured, and I just saw this howl of frustration from Marco. Just, oh God, just like this place, this always happens. And to be fair to him, he was quite nice towards Bournemouth afterwards, saying they really are a very, very good team. Did you see this? I wrote this in my talking point for today's website, The Guardian. Justin Kluivert scored on a week that his two brothers scored.
Yes, a great stat.
Yeah.
Consecutive days. Patrick Kluivert's sons, Shane, Ruben and Justin, all scored. Do we know who they play for? Shane
plays for Barcelona youth team, essentially, in the UEFA Youth League. Mm-hmm. Is it Ruben is the other one? Ruben plays for Lyon, I think, and obviously Justin plays for Bournemouth.
And what a hit from Justin Kluivert.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, Barry, if you are Fulham, the Semenyo first goal is brilliant, but you cannot let it in. From a Fulham perspective, that is just like banging your head against the wall, I think.
I thought that was just brilliant, that goal. The way... So he used his strength to get past Castagne and Chukwueze to the byline. His touch to keep the ball in play, and then another touch to create the angle. And he said himself afterwards, I looked up, I saw I had no options, so I thought, right, I'll try and put it between the keeper's legs. And that's exactly what he did. And to execute that perfectly in apocalyptic weather conditions, I was so impressed. So I get he shouldn't have been able to get past Timothy Castagna and Chukwueze, but when he did, it was just a piece of genius, I think. I wouldn't really blame Bernd Leno for it. The way he created that angle was superb.
Yeah, no, I'm blaming the defence, not Leno. To St James's Park, Newcastle 2, Forest 0. So a good result for Newcastle because they haven't had too many good results this season. We'll get to Ange in a second. Lucy, Voltemada is fascinating. He reminds me a bit of Sheringham. Obviously, it's a different shape and size, but that's of all the statistics this weekend, the fact that he did not lose the ball once. And when you're a centre forward with your back to goal, that is astonishing that he wasn't tackled, that someone didn't, and I know maybe Forrest was sitting off him a bit, but every touch, the way he lays the ball off, I think he's a delightful player.
He's quite tall as well, and usually sort of taller players, may sort of struggle with that. But what I like about him is he's quite individual. If you look at him off the pitch, he sort of, and you don't often see this in footballers, they all sort of wear the same thing. He's a little bit different with what he wears and his style, you see with his moustache, and that is an exception rather than the norm. Honestly, they daren't be different because, well, who knows, same cars, same clothes, etc. So I quite like that, which tells me that that coming into the Premier League probably didn't faze him, and you can tell his performances, and the fact that he's getting on the score sheet helps as well. I think a big character, big confidence. So when Newcastle fans, obviously losing Isak was a big issue, but once it got to the stage where they knew he didn't want to play for him, it's like when he came in, it was like, well, and I'm not sure that he will be as good, and he probably won't be as good, but he's a bit different and he will help the side. And I think he's sort of shown that in the opening games that he's played. So I like him a lot.
And actually, if you've got a player like that, John, and it'd be interesting if Sheringham played in an era of one guy up front, you have to have pace around, so Gordon and Elanga next to sort of either side of Voltemada is actually really interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge's words being eaten when he's, I mean, that was one of those quotes. We did it last week for the Football Daily newsletter. We're digging out, quote of the day or whatever. And it's like, is that one real? Like, can actually someone have said that? And it did turn out to be true. We verified it. Yeah, I mean, Voltemada, I love this guy. That penalty.
Wow.
Pressman levels.
Yeah.
Pressman levels. Brilliant. And do you know what? After all the Isak stuff, and it was a painful time for Newcastle United supporters, that sort of reality check of like, we're not really where we thought we were if players want to go to Liverpool. And then you get a guy like Voltemada who is different, a sort of folk hero type of guy, who offers something that makes your team more interesting, all the better for it. I have really enjoyed him being in the Premier League. I'm also, there's Sheringham comparisons, there's a sort of Peter Crouch comparison. I actually think I've not really seen a player like him. I don't really think I can compare him to anyone, just that because he has such a mix of skills and and also the look is amazing as well. He looks like the type of person I might run into at one of my death metal gigs. He just, you wouldn't want to be stood behind him.
No, that's true. Sort of like a badly cast musketeer in the Three Musketeers. Going, he sort of looks right, but you can't put someone who's 7 foot as Aramis,
exactly,
can you? But you've done it anyway, and he's sort of getting away with it. Meanwhile, Barry, Ange has been in charge for 7 games. They're yet to win. The reporter on Match of the Day says, Ange, it's been a roller coaster. And I wanted to say, roller coasters also go up.
Yes.
So it hasn't really. They're 1 point above the relegation zone. And he's already in this kind of, the Ange, I don't care. I love the position I'm in right now where I have to fight for everything. It's what I've done my whole career. I started in Australia when I was 32 in semi-professional football. I'm here in the Premier League at 60. Do you reckon I lack self-belief or don't like a fight? I'm here. I didn't get here because of my connections. And he's right, Ange is right.
Well, I think he got specifically there because of his connections.
Yeah, he did. I'm going to say. Yeah,
but,
he was at the swimming pool with, what's his face? I've seen that picture.
Marinakis, yeah.
But I know what he's saying. I have a certain amount of sympathy for Ange because they've had 7 games in 30 days since he took charge. When is he supposed to train the team? When does he get to impart this philosophy? But he knew what he was signing up for. He has a hard act to follow. He isn't following much aplomb. To be fair, I think Forest have played quite well in some of the games they haven't won on his watch. They did not play well in this one. They were well beaten by Newcastle. Joe Hart launched a very spirited defence of Ange on Match of the Day last night. And Joe has been one of Ange's biggest cheerleaders because Ange threw him a career lifeline when he was let go by Spurs and it didn't look like anyone wanted him. And he went on to have a very successful few years at Celtic under Ange. So I get that he probably thinks he owes him one. But his defence falls down because he was comparing a bad time Ange was having at Celtic to the bad time he's having now. But it doesn't really matter how bad a time Ange has at Celtic. Celtic aren't going to get relegated. They're never going to be in a relegation scrap. Forest are very much in a relegation scrap. And look, who knows? I think he should be given more time, but it's easy for me to say that because it makes no difference to me whether Forest stay up or don't stay up. And Marinakis, we know, is a very volatile, combustible character. Who knows what could happen in the next couple of weeks during the break.
Yeah, if Ange does give a career lifeline to his biggest cheerleaders, I may well end up being the set-piece coach for Nottingham Forest. We could do it together.
Did you see the internet meme of Mange as James Bond? Did you see this? 007. That's his record so far.
Right. Very good. I mean, they did lose to Midtjylland as well on Thursday night.
Oh yeah, I was there. That was a bit nasty.
Yeah, and he got some. Yeah, the fans weren't happy at all. And then he did a 3-minute interview where he looked at his shoes, and at the end said, "We've just got to keep our heads up," which I did quite enjoy. Right, that'll do for part 2. Part 3 will begin at Goodison. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Everton 2, Crystal Palace 1. Sergeant Napa says, are Everton in pole position for the Everton Cup? Will United take the spoils? Sal says, would Barry have scored that Grealish goal? You know, in the same way that everyone likes Mason Mount, I think. I think everyone loves Jack Grealish. And everybody likes hearing other people say, it's so nice to see Jack Grealish playing with a smile on his face, Lucy. And, you know, Everton probably shouldn't have won this game. Palace were much better for 70 minutes. But I think nothing makes neutral fans happier than seeing Jack Grealish being happy.
Yeah, and Palace have been absolutely brilliant. I mean, under Ollie Glasner, honestly, the way that they play and the way that he's got that, you know, we talk about formation 3-4-2-1. Yeah, it's not the same way as Amorim plays it, but he's got it absolutely nailed from his time at Frankfurt as well. But yeah, Jack Grealish, I think people sort of revisionism about his time at Manchester City, because the year that they won the treble, I remember doing quite a lot of commentary, and he did what Guardiola wanted him to do. Guardiola doesn't have wingers that are the same as everybody else with the way that he's now playing at Everton. You know, he wants them to sort of drag players away and, you know the time to go quick and slow, etc. And he has a massive part to play in that, Grealish, of them winning the treble, Manchester City. But, you know, deep down, the Villa Grealish was dying to come out, and the only way that could come out couldn't have come out of Manchester City. It had to come out somewhere else. And David Moyes must have just been like, God, if I could get Grealish, I know exactly. If I just say to him, right, this is what I want you to do, and then, you know, I'm not going to tell you how to do it because you know how to do that. And it's amazing. And he just seems like, you know, I mean, he might be a party boy, and I don't know whether he still is as much as he used to be, but he genuinely is a player that looks like all the fans watching would love to be him, just because he just looks like he's a fan playing the game, who is obviously very, very good. He just enjoys every bit of it. He's so nice to everybody. So it's nice to see him doing well, and nice to see him playing for Everton. Yeah, just that's it. Exactly what you said, Max. It's just smiling, doing what he wants to do, and scoring goals and being effective. And you imagine being at Hill Dickinson Stadium and everybody absolutely loves you. He must be absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, it's infectious. He's got an infectious, sort of a bit like James Maddison, maybe more so, just a real infectious energy about him that I think, you know, will be so good for Everton for as long as he's there. I mean, Beto made a big difference. I'm sorry to say, Barry, you were quite lethargic in the first half, and it was right that they replaced you
Yes.
with Beto.
Get him off. Get Barry off, I said.
Yeah, I was quite lethargic at the start of this podcast as well.
Well, you've not got any better.
Right, thanks.
Here we go.
At the end of this game, I could not figure out how the hell did Crystal Palace not win. I mean, they should have been out of sight.
Yeah.
And between Pickford making some great saves and various Palace players pulling off some quite astonishing misses, it was just funny. But it's a great win for Everton. Fair play to them. They kept plugging away and they got... I mean, the penalty was ridiculous. That was just the tackle of a very fatigued player, I think. Lacroix gave it away. The goal was a little bit lucky, the winner.
A little bit?
Clear, yeah, okay, a little. Very lucky. I don't want to be down on Everton. It was a good win for them. But even David Moyes said afterwards, we were lucky there. We should have been, or they should have been out of sight. But what a win. I think Crystal Palace, this is early signs of the Thursday-Sunday factor coming in. They looked very tired in that last 20 minutes, and they don't have a huge amount on the bench compared to other squads whose strength in depth, newfound strength and depth, we've been lauding in recent weeks.
Yeah, I think so. But look, they unbeaten run of 19 games is not unimpressive. And some of those games, that does include an FA Cup final and a Community Shield, etc. And well done to Jordan Pickford, his 300th game for Everton. Aston Villa beat Burnley 2-1. And 2 goals, John, for Donyell Marland. 2 really good finishes, actually, I think.
Yeah, he's a sort of forgotten player, really, isn't he? He was signed at the same time as they signed Rashford and... What was the other guy's name? Remind me.
Asensio.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's do that again. Yeah,
he's the forgotten one.
He's the forgotten one. It's just my brain is melted. Yeah.
I think that's staying in. John.
Okay, the forgotten
Leave
one, as well as the other forgotten one. Yeah,
with Thingamajig and Thingamabob.
What do you call it? And what's his name? So what's his name scored 2 very good goals. I remember actually seeing him come on just about the same time as he signed as Rashford and the other bloke, and thinking, there's a player. And then we've not seen much of him, but he's a very speedy player. He's got a lot of power in the shot. Good signing. It feels like the last time I was on the pod, it was all over for Aston Villa. That was it. Rack and ruin, a relegation season. Unai Emery going back to Spain, tail between his legs. No, he's a good enough manager. They've got enough talent. They'll be okay.
Yeah, 4 wins in a row. They beat Feyenoord 2-0 on Thursday night as well. I thought Fleming was a little bit lucky to stay on the pitch when he raised his arm into...
A little bit?
Yeah, well, that was sort of check complete. And you're like, are you sure? I would uncomplete this check quite quickly. Man City won 1-0 at Brentford. You were at this one as well, John. So not the most exciting game, but the Haaland goal is just a lot of fun, isn't it? His quotes after a great first 5 minutes, Vandenberg, kept pushing me. So I thought, all right, let's have it. For me, this is a proper goal. And it was just like, I'm bigger than you. I'm bigger than everyone. Here I go.
I'm just going to run straight through you. And Nathan Collins, don't you dare try and get in my way either. That was pretty much, which Nathan Collins clearly did not do. Turn, run past player, clatter, goal, let's go home after and the best defender on the pitch, Erling Haaland. I've noticed, obviously, City there aren't as many stars in the team as there used to be. There's no Kevin De Bruyne, Gundogan's gone, Kyle Walker, whatever. So you've got the alpha male collection now is Haaland, who's 25 and a daddy these days. And then you've got Donnarumma, who actually, Pep's line was quite funny. He goes, we signed this guy and he's only 26. I thought he'd been playing for centuries, which is great. And
I agree.
They're the three, and Pep, of course. And there was a point just in front of at the press boxes, just behind. There's a point where Pep and Haaland were both sort of shouting and pointing and directing and saying to Donnarumma, get the ball over here when you're kicking it and stuff like that. But then there was a sort of buddy hug between Donnarumma and Haaland. I think these two, recognised game there. I think it's
that could create electricity, couldn't it? Like the Large Hadron Collider when Donnarumma and Haaland embrace and it powers a small nation. And he made a good save from Thiago, didn't he? Who didn't quite sort his feet out.
Thiago had too long maybe to think about that one, and then suddenly it was all over.
Max, Dr. Ward again, Rodri, hamstring. So when you do your ACL, that ends up being all right. The actual graft into the knee. Usually it's, when you've rehabbed, that's all right. But you get the graft. I would suspect mine was from my hamstring into, and they use that as a graft to replace the ligament, and you end up always having, because obviously you've had a piece of your hamstring taken out, you always tend to have a little bit weaker hamstrings that side. And obviously the technology now, sports science, means that Rodri's hamstrings maybe a little bit percentage-wise stronger than mine was. However, it still has an effect, particularly the amount of minutes that he plays. And so you always get the little knocks and strains to hamstrings, backs sometimes as well when you're coming back from an ACL. And it's a shame, really, but they're so reliant on what he does that it did affect them in the second half when sort of Brentford got themselves together as well, which obviously helped.
I don't know if I prefer your medical knowledge or Barry. Just from the look of him, I'd make it 6 weeks. It's hard to say.
That's more than 6.
Do you think that's more than 6?
Could be 3 months.
Oh, really?
Andy Gray used to do that, didn't he, on Sky?
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like from the commentary box at Goodison, he'd diagnose, that's a medial lean ligament.
Yeah.
Is 6 weeks, just like that.
Well, I was playing last season, one of the last games of the season, and our star striker caught. I put him through, and he took a heavy touch, and then there was a bit of a coming together, and he went down and held his knee, and Henry ran up and just went, yeah, that's an ACL. But Henry is a doctor, and he was right, but his bedside manner wasn't a matter. I don't think that's what Court wanted to hear. He was lying in agony. They brought out the stretcher that I don't think had been used since the First World War. It was like a sort of threadbare thing. And actually, as he was taken off, the ref booked him. And I thought, you don't need to do that. He might have fouled. No. You don't need that. He's done his ACL, mate. Come on. Anyway.
No, I think one of the best sights in football is someone getting booked or sent off while lying on a stretcher.
You bastard.
It's just, I know you're miserable, but here, have a card.
Actually, well, I mean, speaking of sendings off, because Vitor Pereira was sent off as well as Maresca, and we forgot to say that neither of them were allowed to do the TV interview, which seems like a prize.
Wow.
You shouldn't be let off that. Anyway, whoever his assistant was said Vitor was very apologetic. He was sent off for, quote, irresponsible behaviour in the technical area. But agony for Wolves this, Barry, because for the second week in a row, they were so close to winning a game. They had massive chances at 1-0, and then they just fall asleep at a corner they don't need to give away.
Well, you pretty much summed it up. They should have increased their lead after going a goal up, and it was somewhat fortuitous opener. Then there was that incident where Pereira got sent off for his feckless behaviour, and they missed several good chances. The corner there was no need to give away that corner. Chachua gave it away, completely unnecessary. Sam Johnston was understandably furious with him. Brighton took it quickly while Sam Johnston was still being furious with him, and they scored an equaliser. Well, they did deserve it, but Wolves should have been out of sight. I still think Wolves are not the worst team in the division by any stretch of the imagination, despite being bottom of the table.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And Lucy was nodding as well, and so we all agree.
Yeah, I do think as well. I think rather than seeing it sort of negative, I think that's a 3-game unbeaten run, including the win that's kicked it off. Was it against Everton in the League Cup for Wolves? And it's all about those small little steps for them, because they didn't start well, obviously, they're losing games, and then all of a sudden now, even if you forget about the sort of late concessions, they've not lost in 3 games, and that's how he will, when the dust settles, will approach it with his players, that they're putting in performances that they should be winning, and they'll turn it around. I think I agree with Barry.
The only problem is the Wolves hierarchy tend to have kind of an itchy trigger finger, don't they? So I think it would be unwise to sack Pereira, but
they gave him a 3-year contract.
Well, there is that too, isn't
and he pointed out. I was at Spurs last week. He pointed out that the players that were signed all arrived on the final day of the transfer window. He's like, "How are you supposed to build a team, that quickly?" So I think Wolves could be okay, but they're going to have to crawl before they can run, if you see what I mean.
Russell Martin is available if they do, if that trigger finger goes, but he's been sacked as the Rangers head coach after 17 games. The club saying, while all transition periods require some time, results have not met expectations. And I suppose lucky for Rangers fans to hear that the expectations are not this low. It got pretty sour. He required a police escort to his car after they drew at Falkirk. Fans blocked the team bus. 1 win in 7 in the league, 11 points off Hearts in first, 9 behind Celtic. We'll speak to you and Murray about it in depth soon. But Barry, it's been a terrible appointment, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was baffling. He wasn't wanted by Rangers fans to begin with. He couldn't have got off to much worse of a start. The fact that Hearts have Tony Bloom on board and are doing really well hasn't helped him either. But just it was a weird appointment, and he didn't do himself any favours with coming out with some almost arrogant stuff in post-match interviews when he had very little to be arrogant about. I mean, he clearly had something about him at one stage as a manager, and I believe, and I'm happy to stand corrected if I'm wrong, Swansea fans loved him. He got Southampton promoted, but Southampton last season, the Premier League, and Rangers this time around, it's just been horrific.
I have covered a few of the Rangers games in Europe this season for The Guardian, and that's involved me, watching all the build-up and off TV. They can send me to Glasgow one day if they'd like, but that's another issue. The post-match stuff, you're almost watching for the post-match Russell Martin interview to see how he could explain this one away. And it's always this, well, it's all going really well, apart from that bit. Yeah. And then the rest of it, I can see so many positive signs that we'll get it together. And one of the owners, it's the 49ers group, isn't it? Was in Glasgow for, I think played Genk a couple of weeks ago or a week or so ago. And he was not... he was surrounded by Rangers fans at the end. You could see the TV footage of them all just saying, why have we still got this guy in charge? And I was actually sat next to a Rangers fan yesterday at Brentford who just sort of had head in hands as the latest result came in and was just like, I said to him, next time I see you, Russell Martin won't be your manager. By the time I think I got into the pub after the game, Russell Martin was actually gone. So, a misadventure, should we put it that way? I think they tried to be progressive, didn't they, with the choice of manager? There's progressive and then there's Russell Martin. I don't think they're maybe the same thing.
Stevie G back?
I don't know who they turned to.
Dyche. You think got Dyche written all over it.
Yeah.
Oh, Dyche.
I like Dyche.
Oh,
Dyche versus Brendan Rodgers would be fun, wouldn't it? We end with this from Alex. Says, hi, Max. I'm on holiday in Bali with the family, doing a digital detox, pods excluded. I've created a new game in the pool with my kids. It's called Barry's Headers. You throw a ball from one end and your kid leaps in and has to head the ball as beautifully as Barry did. Are you pleased to have made Barry's Headers? It could become the next Kirby. All the kids could play it and talk about it nostalgically in years to come.
I'm honoured, delighted, and I'm sure many of their headers are far better than mine was.
Good to know. Well, hopefully we'll be big in Bali after we do a live show there. Be useful. Quite easy, sort of equidistant almost. Well, easier for me than you, but we could make it happen. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Phil Maynard.
This is The Guardian.